Hello everyone, I am Gaëlle Bou. I lead business development at SYSTRAN. For those who don't know us yet, SYSTRAN is a pure player in machine translation and leader in enterprise solutions. Welcome to this fourth webinar of a new series we launched this year. We wanted to give the floor to our customers and partners to share with you their experience around machine translation. What challenges has machine translation addressed? How was the project built? What were the keys of its success? What are the benefits? What are the opportunities ahead? Before we start, I would like to give you some logistics information. This webinar is recorded. You will have access to the recording in a few days. You are on mute, and please use the chat panel to ask any questions, because at the end we will have a Q&A sessions and we will address your questions. Today, I am pleased to welcome Alex Katsambas, Senior Head of Localization Services at Farfetch. Hello, Alex. Welcome.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for accepting our invitation and sharing with the participants some of your expertise and experience around machine translation. Thank you for that.
Thank you. It's great to be here, and yeah, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So, if you're okay, before getting to the heart of the subject, I think it would be interesting to introduce Farfetch and your role in the company.
Of course. So, for those who don't know Farfetch, or even for those who might know it, but they wanted a little bit more information, we are an e-commerce luxury online marketplace. And that is the Farfetch.com. So the core of our business is we connect boutiques and luxury brands from all over the world, and we give them a platform to be able to sell products. We operate across 190 countries and territories. And that combination of boutiques and brands all together in that one single place makes us the largest luxury marketplace in the world. And in addition to that, we offer white labeling services as well through our Farfetch Platform Solutions, which is a service that different brands, mainly fashion brands, at this stage, they opt in to use our technology to build their own e-commerce solutions, and that's what makes pretty much the wider Farfetch group in terms of operations.
Perfect.
Yes. Now a little bit about myself. You asked, I believe.
Yeah.
So I'm the Senior Head of Localization Services for the Farfetch Group. I guess to say what my main job is, I guess I'd say to secure the operational excellence of our localization services, whether that is for the Farfetch.com or for our FPS partners as well, the Farfetch Platform Solutions services, and pretty much anything that is produced out of English is what falls under, I'd say, my remit.
Okay, great, crystal clear. Now I think it will be interesting to explain to the audience why languages and why localization is so important at Farfetch.
Right. So the marketplace, so Farfetch.com, is currently localized in 16 languages. We cover about 50 markets with our localized content, and that's mainly in terms of talk a little bit about what exactly that content is. Imagine we have a very large product catalog, so we localize all our product catalog across all those languages. Is about in terms of volumes, is about 3,000 products that they need to be localized across every day. So that makes our product catalog about almost 600,000 products that they're available on the marketplace at any given time. We also support our marketing and brand content, so any campaigns, editorials, CRM content. We produce SEO content, so we write copy for product listings, metadata. We write articles in order to drive organic traffic. And of course, more on the operational side, we localize all the user experience content, so all the navigational menus on the site, labels, the purchase journey, post-purchase journey. And we also support our customer service team with a lot of content that they need to have available when they interact with the customers on a day-to-day. So that's on the marketplace side of things, but we also offer localization services for our partners. So, and that is for platform solutions. So we currently, any partner that is using our technology and wants to opt in for localization services as well, they're able, we support them to localize that content in any language that they might want. We currently localize content for 38 websites for our partners, which is also a lot of content. So to touch and go back to your original question, that creates a very large team. And of course that creates, it puts our team into a very crucial place within the Farfetch ecosystem overall, that facilitates the support and the success, not just for the Farfetch.com, but also for our partners as well.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. We understand why it's so important for you. It's just central in your business and in your activity. So it's very clear how it's strategic. Okay, and then so the next question would be, how did you manage translation before using MT? Because as you talk about so much volume, we can ask you how you did.
So we went through phases. I think I'll take you before we had any technology, and that wasn't very long ago. I think almost 5 years ago, we had no technology whatsoever. Some of our internal tools and our technology was able to manage localization, but it wasn't really a localization tool. So our transformation journey started about 5 years ago, and that's where we kind of first thought we need to introduce a translation management system first, in order to start putting structures for the teams, in order to start managing and leverage more content. That's where we started building translation memories, but we soon discovered that our volumes were too large to be just single-handedly managed by a translation management system. And that's where about 3 years in that plan, about 2 years ago, is where we realized that in order for us to be able to manage the very large volumes that we had to start exploring additional technology. And that's of course where the machine translation exploration came in, and that's where we started introducing neural machine translation into our workflows in order to accelerate our production capabilities in this case.
Okay, and so when you decided to put an MT in place, because it was really mandatory for managing all this volume, did you have specific expectation for implementing an MT solution?
We did. I think for me and my teams, one of the most important things, there were a few kind of requirements that we put in place, but the most important thing was we wanted to introduce NMT in the least kind of disruptive way possible. So first and foremost, we wanted a service that was going to be user-friendly. We wanted it to be interconnected, so we wanted to be part of the workflows rather than kind of being additional or working on the site. So that interconnectivity was very important. We also wanted it to be flexible. One of the good things that we have in our team, and one of the things that I'm always kind of feel that we are lucky to have it is that we have a lot of expertise already internally. Because we have an internal localization model, it means that we have people who understand how to use this technology and how to work with it. So we needed to be flexible. We came across providers while we were kind of doing this exploration. When SYSTRAN was part of the candidates for us to choose from, we did come across providers out there that they were kind of pushing us into very specific directions, either whether it was to opt in to use their post editing, or to jump into this is how you use it, or you cannot use it here, you cannot. But we wanted to be a lot more flexible than that. So that flexibility and adaptability for us was very, very important. And I think last and of course definitely equally important was the quality. So making sure that we were able to deliver good quality content at all times. So it's almost creating an environment for the teams that they're able to use neural machine translation as part of their day-to-day workflow without feeling that they're being disrupted in their operations. So I think that was quite important.
Yeah, very clear. Thank you for that. And so you explained that you, of course, you asked several providers on the market to see the one who will meet your requirements the best. And could you explain to the audience how does this SYSTRAN solution meet this expectation, and why it meets better than the other?
Yeah. So I think I will link it a little bit into the fact that what I mentioned earlier on the fact that our teams, I had a lot of experts within the team, which meant that we could always understand whether the providers or the candidates we were working with were able to give us what we needed from the very beginning. I think what SYSTRAN did quite well, and it's something that we work well with SYSTRAN, was that you guys spend a lot of time to understand what we needed. You were very flexible. You did have that service mindset that we were also looking for, and of course always being very, very transparent. So it almost kind of worked and formed into a partnership and a relationship that was very, very important for us, that in terms of how we wanted to move forward. And I think eventually we did manage to build some really powerful neural machine translation engines that even surprised us to a certain extent, of course, for specific type of material as well. In some cases it worked brilliantly. In some cases it still needs a little bit of work, but for the areas that we really needed to bring efficiencies, we were actually even ourselves very pleasantly surprised in terms of the output of the content. So that was really good in terms of how our relationship ended up being and what kind of service we ended up having with SYSTRAN, for sure.
Okay, good. I'm happy to hear that. And the team too, because I know they really love to work with you and your team. And you're right, it's also because in front of us we had some really capable people and really experts on your side. It's really part of the success, of the project. So it's a balance, we have to be together.
Absolutely, I agree.
Involved.
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, of course, I think that the audience will be very interested by the improvements you had from the MT solutions. So if you can share some figures or some facts with us, it will be very, very nice.
Yeah, of course. So in terms of improvements, what did we see? So what is important here to explain is a little bit of the workflow as well, because when we build the workflows, pretty much almost all of our content goes through the translation management system, and that's the first layer that comes in, where we're able to leverage whatever memories are available. but we talked about that interconnectivity that we talked about. So what we have with the translation management system is that SYSTRAN is actually plugged in on it, and which means that we're able to feed neural machine translation content real time as we move along in that continuous localization workflow, which allows us to have quite a considerable amount of, efficiency as we feed and as we go forward. In terms of time, we're looking about 30 to 35% efficiencies, which basically means that the teams are able to finish, a lot earlier their tasks. And of course, naturally, because we're volume-based and we're resource, and we do need to engage with a lot of resources on a day-to-day basis, that time efficiency also naturally brought a lot of cost efficiencies, and we have areas that we're seeing, between 35 and 45%, up to 45% cost efficiencies in specific instances, which is quite an impressive number for someone that we didn't do it for cost efficiencies, right? Those came kind of almost naturally, and of course now we're in we're well within year 2. There is this incremental gains of 10 to 15% as we go through engine retrainings, fix anything that the engines didn't get right from the very beginning, but we knew and we identified. So there's always that continuous improvement that is happening as we move along. So overall, very, very happy in terms of outputs, but as always, there are improvements to do, which that collaboration between us is going to be able to tackle for sure as we move forward.
Of course, as you said, it's really a path. So we have to, but already it's quite impressive. I agree.
I don't know where you go after that, right? So it's like, and how much more
really?
How much more do you need? So yeah, that's definitely the case.
For sure. And so now, what are your next steps for the future? Because of course, as you said, it's not the end; it's the beginning. So I think you have other way to improve.
Yes. So in terms of our business and where next, we find ourselves in a position that we believe that we can democratize that kind of approach that we have for the marketplace and for Farfetch.com. So what we're doing is we're evolving, and we're planning to evolve our model to be able to start talking to our platform solutions partners for this kind of localization solution as well. So partners who are opting in to use localization services, we want to be able to say, well, you can do it this way, which is totally fine, depending on your size, etc. But also, if you want, we have experience and we have some success stories to talk about using neural machine translation for our own content. So would you be interested in going into that exploration? And we can work with them to bring them into, and they would definitely see the same benefits for sure, because it's that sphere of content that it's very specific. So if we do it well, there's absolutely no reason why our partners wouldn't be able to do it well as well. And of course, internally for our own stakeholders, kind of almost starting to offer that and make it clearer in terms of what is it exactly. This is a service level that is using neural machine translation. This is a service level that it doesn't use it. You get to choose what kind of result you should expect. What is your intent, of course. So it's almost kind of slowly start making us part of a service for the teams. And I think one important element that we don't talk enough is what do we do with those efficiencies that we talk about, right? So you say, like, I have a very large internal team. If I save them 30-40% of their time on a daily basis, what do we do with that? And I think that's where the true gains were for us, because we what we end up doing is we're reinvesting that time into that cycle of optimization, kind of that diversification of content optimization that the teams are able to do. They're able to do research nowadays. They have more time to do that. They let the machines to take care of content that is very repetitive, for example, that is always the same. And they can refocus and say, well, what is the high visibility content we want to work on? What is it that needs optimization? What is it that we don't do well and we need to do better? This is the kind of stuff that it makes it a lot more interesting in terms of, you know, the role of a translator or a writer or a localization manager or a lead, for sure.
And it is their feeling. They are really okay with that, to feel that their job is more interesting, and they add more value to the workflow, to the business.
Absolutely, and of course I can't talk on their behalf. I want to believe that they're a happy team. I think they're a team that likes a challenge, for sure, but I think they're also a team that it's quite clear that anybody, you don't want to be stuck in just doing the same content repeated over and over again, because they don't have that flexibility to do, you know, to do fashion today and do something else tomorrow, and that it's always around fashion. So I think that it creates that space of allowing them to go and research and read and understand what the new trends are and what are the news and what is happening out there in the world, without having to constantly running behind deadlines to produce that, you know, 2 billion words a year that we throw out to our customers. So of course, I think the teams are happy. Of course, there are always challenges, but you know, there is a team there to deal with it, and we support them wherever we can.
Great. Thank you for that. It's very interesting. And perhaps before we take the questions, I'd like to terminate by this one. So what kind of advice would you give to our audience if they are about launching their own machine translation project?
Right. So I feel that that's an easy one, but I don't know if it's, at least to me, it was always like kind of the answer. I think anyone who wants to explore machine translation and neural machine translation, is important to know and be clear on where they want that service to sit within their ecosystem. And I think that's where it's very, very important to kind of almost understand what is the purpose that you want to introduce neural machine translation in your operations. What is the content type you want to use it for? Do you really want to do machine translation for highly creative content, for example? Is that really what you want to do? Or do you have a lot of repetitive content that, you know, neural machine translation engines would be able to take care of on a day-to-day basis? And of course, the second definition would be, what kind of output do you want from them? Because that would also define how much human effort you want to put on each content type and where you use it. And of course, that would also change the metrics in terms of return on investment, your efficiencies, and everything that brings in. So I would advise to explore what you want to get out of it first. Are you doing it for the money and the cost efficiency? Are you doing it for speed? Are you doing it for volumes? Are you still doing it because you want to diversify the technology? There are multiple reasons, or are you doing it for a combination? So, yeah, I think that's the only advice I would give. Don't go in just for the sake of going into it, just because everybody else does it. I think it needs to be a very conscious decision to use machine translation within your localization ecosystems.
Yeah, it makes sense. Now, Perhaps also I can add something on that. If you don't know why or how to use machine translation, know that at SYSTRAN we have the expertise and we have the experience, and we are lucky because we have so many customers like you, very mature ones that really did some just amazing implementation of machine translation. We are very proud of what our customers do with the solution. So we have all these feedbacks, and of course we can share them with you guys if you want to have a just from now to think about it, and you don't know exactly how to put that in place. We definitely can help you. So it's a message I want to share, because I think you appreciate that with us, the service, really the people that we put in front of you, and to really have this this exchange and this capacity to help you on the also on the why it is useful, for what kind of usage, and how we can help on that. Thank you so much. I think you're really what you share with us was so interesting, very precise, very complete. So thank you for that. And now I think it could be interesting to see if we have some questions. Of again, I repeat, if you want to ask a question, you have to use the question panel, the chat panel, sorry, so you can ask what you want. Do we have some questions? Yes. Okay.
One.
It's the first one. It's always the most difficult. So the first one, then we'll launch the others. So tell me, what is the question? Okay. Okay, for the translation or QC work, I don't know what it is, QC work, that still needs to be done manually. Is this all carried out by an internal team, or are translation agencies also involved in the workflow? So it's for you, Alex.
Yes, of course. So we do a combination. So we have, I should have explained that at the beginning. So we, in terms of the team structure, we have a very large internal localization team. We have a content team per language that we produce, and they take care of the vast majority of the content, which goes through post-editing. But we also work with an equally, pretty much the same size of external vendors direct. So we work with our own vendors externally who are able to post-edit and QC the content, but we do work with an agency, an LSP, and an agency partner who is supporting us in low capacity seasons for the rest of the team, but also they have specific type of content that just goes to the agency, and that includes both translation direct, but also post-editing tasks as well. So it's a combination. I think what is important here to say, we do not publish raw machine translated content at any given time. All the content that the engines output are is post-edited and QC'd as well. Even though we do have data
for quality, okay.
Quality check, yeah.
Quality check, of course.
I think just one thing to mention here, surprisingly, and I think that depends on the output of your engine as well, but surprisingly, we have some data internally when we monitor through our localization solutions team. We have some data internally that suggests that depending on language, we can already see that we have a considerable percentage of content that actually doesn't need post-editing at all. Depends on the content type, it depends on the area. It's not a blanket statement. But when it comes to more technical details, product descriptions, product information, that it's a lot more standardized. We see certain percentages that actually they don't need to be post-edited at all, and they're just pushed through, which is an incredible thing to see. provider that we trust, obviously, are people that they're not just pushing them through, which is, it's hopefully not the case. So yeah, definitely the post editing, whoever you interact with, language service providers out there, agencies, they do provide post editing capabilities for anything you have. So you can always do that combination of the two, for sure.
Yeah, thank you. I have another question. So how do you manage the maintenance problem? You have a lot of content on the websites. Yeah.
So maintenance in terms of the website, I would assume, or maintenance in terms of neural machine translation?
Of the content, I assume. So you have a lot of websites with the content that I assume is evolving. So how you maintain all that?
That's right. So I think it links to the previous answer as well. So none of our content gets published or goes live without being post edited and subbed, right? So in terms of maintenance, first of all, because we're in the fashion sphere, products come and go. So the catalog gets renewed seasonally anyway. So products will be refreshed. But at the same time, I'll go also back to the fact that because we're saving time, we're able to reinvest that time to go back and review areas where they might need to be optimized, but also allow for content to perform as it is, and understand whether we need to improve it or we need to change it as well. So in terms of maintenance, it's a combination. Very large team of localization professionals, either translators, writers, sub-editors, that we have editors that they post-edit the content, and also knowing to what extent we need to post-edit depending on the area as well. So it's a different level of post-editing when it comes to product information, and a different layer of post-editing when it comes to UX copy or marketing copy or brand content as well. So those layers and service levels are a little bit different in terms of how much effort goes in, for sure.
Okay.
I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I think so. It's clear for me. I hope it is for the person who asked the question. Okay, so how often is the model retrained with new data?
So at the moment we train once a year. We are just about, just about going through the first retraining. No, sorry, the first group has already retrained. We're waiting for the second group of languages because the launch of neural machine translation was phased. So it took us about a year because we grouped it, because we didn't want to get all the teams to launch at the same time. Even though SYSTRAN was more than happy to be able to do something like that, but it was more on our end to say, well, that was a little bit too much for the teams. So we are retraining once a year, but I do believe that there is some new features coming up soon that is going to allow us to actually do self retraining as well, without being a lot more independent as well, in order for us to.
Yeah, you're right. I can add something on that. We have a new technology, a new product that's called Model Studio, and the goal is to give the hand of to our customers to train themselves their engine. And also the beauty of this new technology is you need less data to train a model. Of course, you need qualitative data, but less in quantity. So perhaps it will allow also to retrain more often. If it makes sense, because sometimes it doesn't make sense, but if it makes sense, you can also retrain easily, because you have this self-train product, and also because you need less data. And it has inside the product, you have all the evaluation and evaluation tools, and so it's quite easy to use. And it's our goal is really to give this to in the end of the customers. So yes, it's
very much looking forward to that. I think it's not that it has been any challenging to train at all. I think that has gone very, very, very well so far. But also being able to to have that on a more continuous basis, I think that would really help, because you can get to required results faster, if I'm honest. So I think that's probably what is quite good for us.
More productive. Yes. Another question. So now we have a lot of questions. I told you. The first one is more difficult. And then, do you use structured content on product catalog, categories, attributes, values?
We do. So I'm thinking whether that is almost a metadata question, isn't it, in terms of how the content is structured? Yes, we do. So what the way that the descriptions are being created, especially in the catalog side of things, is that there is specific attribution that is actually connected to specific categories and specific subcategories as well. It goes into a second level category as well, which allows us to actually be a lot more specific about items. So there is, imagine that there is a pool of attribution or characteristics that you could describe like shoes, or you could describe like a specific subcategory of shoes as well, so different types as well. So, and that's almost a pool that is being reused depending on the characteristics. And then what we're adding on top is additional details that they might be bespoke or specific to the item, which also allows us to maintain that high level of quality as well that we produce, because it's a lot more standardized. So yeah, we do. I hope I understand the question correctly and I'm answering it correctly. But of course, the engines are learning through that way, and they're able to understand as well, especially NMTs. They're able to understand a lot more in terms of what types of content you have if you segment it in a specific way.
Yeah. Another question is, can your partners, you talk about your partners before, use your language services autonomously or as a self-service setup?
So not at this stage, no. So we're not yet there. I think whether we might get to that point, I think personally, I'd say if there is a need and we go into conversations with our partners to say, I want to be a lot more self-service, I want to be using your engines myself, there isn't any real reason for us to say no, but I think it'd be important for us to make sure that the expectations are set, that what kind of output they'll be getting. And of course, we become more of a support solution partner for them rather than a localization partner, if that makes sense. You know, the sky is the limit. So we do have all sorts of different types of combination of partners at the moment in terms of what kind of localization services we offer. It's not one blanket approach. So whether I would see it in the future, maybe yes, maybe not. If they need it, if they don't want it, it's not something that I would intentionally pursue, if that makes sense, but not something that I would, you know, kind of say no or not consider for sure. For sure.
Okay, thank you. One, I think it's interesting around, say, yes, as you were speaking about output expectations, could you expand on how you are able to assess translation quality?
Right. Oh, there are multiple ways. So there are multiple ways. So I think I would refer to, so in terms of output, so first and foremost, you have to think this as a graph where you would have quality on the one side and speed on the other, and you need to be able to place your output in terms of what you want in order to be able to create service levels, as we call them. What do I mean by that? And I'll explain it. The faster you want a service, highly likely the lower the quality is going to be. And we need to accept that. Okay, so of course repetition is key, which is why you need an engine to be able to give you a stable output on a daily basis. If you have an engine that gives you a stable output on a daily basis, it means that you can improve that quality in time. So you can start doing things faster, but at the same time improving the quality. In terms of how we measure it, SYSTRAN has some very specific quality metrics that you can actually use. That's what we did at the beginning. We also introduced and enhanced that kind of scale that SYSTRAN had recommended with our own requirements as well. And I think eventually we came and said, if it's product information, this is the output we expect. If it's marketing content, this is the output we expect. If it's brand, if it's UX, if it's customer service content, those are the outputs, and this is the level that we'd have expected. Depending on that, this is the effort that we need to put on top of the machine output in order to post-edit the content and bring it to the layer that we want to do. And of course, there's a lot of practices you can use. I know a lot of my teams, they're using the 2-second rule, for example. So read the sentence. If the sentence doesn't make sense in 2 seconds, you highly likely need to probably redo it. So there is a lot of kind of tips and tricks out there, and you need to go in and explore it. So which is kind of what was the fun part of doing all of this in the last few years, for sure.
Yeah. And thank you. It's very clear. Perhaps a last question, and I think we will close the webinar. So the last one will be, yes, and it's linked to what we said. Do you have different levels of post-editing depending on the content type? I think
that's
you already answered that.
Yes, yeah. I already answered that. I can make it a little bit clearer. So we have that graph that basically becomes our service level offering for internal and external stakeholders as well. So, and from there we say that what we usually do is we will assess the content first. So basically we'll take an editorial piece of copy, we were running through the NMT. That's what happened originally, right? In order to understand what kind of effort we need. Based on that output, we would have our own internal teams to do a post-editing exercise to understand how much of that content they can go through and what would be the hourly or daily outputs of a single good, trusted linguist in order to get that content post-edited on a daily basis. That gave us the metrics. We said that, for example, we can post-edit X amount of words if it's brand and marketing content. We can post-edit X amount of word if it's product information or product descriptions. And that created the service levels that the attendee was just asking, because that allowed us to actually start building metrics and say, okay, for this type of content, we're able to turn around this volume. What is key here is that the output of the engine, beyond the retrainings, that it improves, it learns, it gets better with your more data you feed. But let's say until you get to that retraining period and phase, it's very stable, which allows you to build service levels. So you're never going to get random stuff today and other results tomorrow and other results the day after. It's very stable in terms of what output it gives, which allows you to step on that and start building. So it's quite an interesting kind of exploration. And it goes back to how our teams were actually very open-minded when we introduced machine translation and the service within the teams. So yeah, I hope that helps.
Yeah, I think it helps a lot. Thank you so much. And so we are going to close this webinar, because if we we keep all the questions, we will end tomorrow. But and I think people have to work also. But it's work also. It's very interesting, and I think very rich for the audience. So thank you again, Alex. It was just great. Thank you for your time, for your transparency and for all you share with us, because it was really, I think, again, something that will be very useful for all people that are thinking about machine translation, and also not only machine translation, but how to manage a business and a global business. So thank you for that. Thank you, all of you, for attending this webinar. So as I said at the beginning, you will receive the replay soon, in the next days. And don't hesitate if you have some question, if you want us to discuss with you your project. So you have here an email on the slide, contact@systrangroup.com. So don't hesitate to drop an email, and we will be so happy to answer your questions, and to, if you want to organize a specific demo or anything you should need. Thanks again. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye. See ya.
Thanks, Alex.